Welcome to Impact the World, the show for and about creatives, changemakers, and entrepreneurs. This is a conversation episode where a special guest shares with me what they are creating and the behind-the-scenes journey of their experience. Welcome to Impact the World, and my guest today is Davidji, who is a world-renowned mindfulness teacher, meditation guide, and a stress expert. Davidji has a unique story. He went from a successful career on Wall Street, but one that made him miserable, and after a personal quest, turned that into his current work, which is helping individuals, corporate executives, and sometimes members of the police force with their relationship to stress and meditation. It was a delight to get to speak to him while we're in lockdown via Zoom, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Davidji, thank you so much for being with us for this show. I will share with anybody who's listening to this show or watching this show, my co-producer for the show, Wendy, was super excited to have you on because you've been a hugely influential person in her life, as you have in the lives of many hundreds of thousands at this point. But I know that your role in the world is very different to how you started out. And by your own story, you share that you were originally on Wall Street, but that you were on Wall Street for many years, but quite miserable. So I wonder if before we dive into where you went next, could you just give us a sense of the beginning of your life, your early life, what your focus was, and how you ended up in Wall Street?
Yes, I think it's important to share my misery because I'm not miserable now. So hopefully that gives hope to anyone who's miserable out there. Well, my life right now is really, it's all about serving. It's all about meditating. It's all about teaching people to connect to that innermost aspect of themselves, to have them awaken their own energy, awaken their own vision, really awaken their voice. And how I got here is a very, very circuitous route. And if we look at how we typically get from A to B in life, it's never a straight line. At least I haven't met anyone who has a straight line there. And so I started meditating innocently enough. My first, I guess, introduction to like the kooky world was my mother was really big on Ouija boards. So we would use a Ouija board when I was a kid. So I knew that she always thought that there's something else beyond here, whether it's a kooky realm, whether it's another realm, whether it's many realms, but there's definitely an intelligence beyond this realm. And so that was, embedded in me at a fairly young age. In college, I took an experimental Asian studies course. And part of that was a cool thing where we meditated. And so we had a Zen master, and there were 12 of us in the class. We would all go to this, special room, and we sat in a circle. And we were instructed to raise our hands when we had a thought. In his hands, our Zen master held a keisaku, an 18-inch bamboo stick. And so when we would raise our hands, he would come over and thwack us on the back. And so it definitely changed whatever was going on there. But I was like, I'm not really sure I want to do this thing anymore. So I left that and I got into candle gazing because I really enjoyed the stillness. That was like a really seductive aspect of that process. And I figured, well, maybe it's just not that style. Maybe I could like this thing. So I did candle gazing, and then I got into Tantra, and then I got into mindfulness and Vipassana, and I did a couple of these, silent retreats for 10 days or 2 weeks. Then I got into mantra, and then I really started exploring a lot of other types of meditation and really stuck with that, some of them for years, others for days. And then I started getting involved in the corporate world. And it was originally as a bond trader. And that led me ultimately to become a mergers and acquisitions advisor. And, that's like helping people take over companies and then figuring out how does 1 + 1 equal at least 2.5. Um, and so I did that, and wasn't really enjoying it. I was good at it, but I wasn't really enjoying it. Um, long term, certainly. And I found that as I got deeper and deeper involved in working, 15-hour days, 7 days a week, and suddenly working for other people to help them get rich. Um, and and I wasn't in that process getting rich. So that was just like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Is it just because of a conditioned thing? And as I got deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into someone else's vision, someone else's journey, I got further and further away from my own. And suddenly I realized I had stopped meditating. I had given up my morning meditation ritual for an early morning train ride to the World Trade Center. I'd given up my afternoon and evening ritual for a nice tall glass of scotch. And like that, meditation was gone. And then suddenly I realized, what's also gone? Balance in my life. There was no balance. My relationships were strained at best. I wasn't a great partner. I wasn't really a great husband. I wasn't a great friend. Like, I only had this singular vision to show up, do this thing, go home, pass out. And I would wake up at 2 in the morning with a knot in my stomach, but only every day for like 10 years of that. And I had tried to wash it away, with a late night drink, but like that never worked. And I would just wake up and just be in agony. And I figured, well, this is pretty much, going to be my life. I didn't know there were tools. I didn't really go back to like, oh, well, maybe if you brought a little balance into your life or started meditating again, or, whatever that was. And I didn't really know that there were tools. And so, uh, in the wake of 9/11, and I worked on the 82nd floor of Tower 2, and just a few months before 9/11, had the great fortune to get the worst job ever in my life, which took me out of the World Trade Center, working for the worst, most despicable people. And, but, here I am. So, it's a combination of like survivor's remorse and blessings, and who can I thank, every single moment for that. Um, but in the wake of 9/11, I was walking in southern Manhattan past a row of cardboard boxes that people were living in. And I walked past this particular box, and this hand reached out and grabbed my pant leg and pulled me in. And these blue crystalline eyes looked up at me. And this guy said, "What's going to be on your tombstone?" It's a fairly reflective moment, and never what you expect from that situation. I like reached into my pocket because I figured, oh, I should give this guy, some money or something along those lines. But we like held in that gaze for what seemed like hours, probably just a few seconds. And in that moment, like everything stopped. The world stopped. The traffic stopped. The people stopped. It was just me and him. I call these like butterfly moments, where there's something deeper here. Perhaps God speaking through this, magnificent being. That most of the times we don't really even pay attention to these people as we're walking past them. And this was my deep, deep, deep connection. Probably the most profound conversation I ever had with anyone in my life. And we continued to talk just a little bit. And then I staggered away, and suddenly I found myself, tears were streaming down my eyes. My legs were weak. I had to sit down on the steps of an apartment building just about, a few hundred feet away. And I was hyperventilating. I couldn't even catch my breath. And I went home, and I shared this with my wife, and she was like, "You need to quit your job." And there's this guy, Deepak Chopra. He's doing a meditation retreat in Oxford, England. And maybe you should probably go to that and return to your meditation thing. And I was like, okay, I'm fairly obedient. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. And within weeks, I had registered for that. And there's supposed to be like 3,000 people there, but no one was flying right after 9/11.
Mm.
And so there were just like 50, and just like a couple from the United States. Most of them were Europeans. And so suddenly it was like, whoa, meditation. I'm doing it again. And we were meditating for like 6, 7 hours a day. I'm practicing yoga and, going deeper into some timeless wisdom. But by the third day, I realized that my heart had been so blackened over these years, and I had been so shut down and so purposeless and so empty inside that each day of meditation was sort of like draping my let's say my heart was this white linen that had been like submerged in black India ink. And every day it was like being draped through a stream, and it was just like washed away and cleansed and lightened. And on the third day, so I felt this emotion that was so unfamiliar to me because I hadn't experienced it in years, maybe 20 years, and it was joy. I was like, oh my God, there's another way to like experience existence. And I was so happy and I was so giddy that I, instantly, spoke to Deepak and I said, what do you think my next step is? And he was like, well, you should probably go to India. And so, of course, I'm fairly obedient. So I didn't even come back home. I went to the embassy in London and got, got my special visa to head off to India and headed off to India in search of the guru. And I searched high and low for the guru. I was looking for that guru, because I was lit in that moment. So receptive. It's like, whatever it is, bring it. And I was like meditating every morning and practicing yoga, twice a day and bathing in the Ganges and praying in the temples and talking to all these people. I searched high and low. I went to Dharamsala to see His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. He was not there that day. Then I traveled, to the south of India, and it was about 5.5 months that I'm like looking for the guru. And as I was laying in a hammock in a cashew forest in Kerala in South India, I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita, this ancient Indian text, and I'm reading. Suddenly, I read this, chapter 2, verse 48, which I have read, I don't know, 200 times before that, because I was reading it every single day. And suddenly I read it, and it starts off with Yogastha Kuru Karmani. The protagonist, Arjuna, the great warrior, is talking to God, Krishna, and he's like, how am I supposed to live my life? Just answer me. Just tell me, how am I supposed to walk through the world? And God, as Krishna, in the form of Krishna, replies to him, Yogastha Kuru Karmani, which means establish yourself in the present moment and then perform action. And I don't know, that just hit me like a lightning bolt. And I got so excited. I only had a few days left on my visa anyway. And so I raced, racing in India is not the same thing. I waited for 2 days, got a bus that took me another 2 days, and then sat in the airport for another 40 hours. But that was racing back.
No, yeah.
Raced back to New York, and I had the answers. And a friend of mine, after like 3 weeks, said, dude, all you do is sit around and meditate. And I replied, I know. Isn't it amazing? It brings me such joy, and I'm so happy. And he said, well, you're not doing anything else. You're not doing anything else. So why don't you share this with other people? Why don't you teach other people to meditate? And I sarcastically replied to him, come on, I'm from New York. I don't care about anyone else's meditation. And it was true. This was just about me. And he said, well, if you really want to learn something, learn to teach it. Learn it from the inside. Learn the mechanics. Learn the science. Learn all those details. And I was like, okay, how? And he said, come on, reconnect with your boy Deepak. He's got that center in California. He's like, it's the Chopra Center. And so become a meditation teacher. And I was like, again, I'm fairly obedient. Lee, just make a suggestion to me, and clearly I will do it. So I headed off to California to attend this workshop, which would be a component of the teacher training. And at that workshop, it was sort of like a love connection between David Simon, Deepak's partner for 20 years, and me and Deepak. And like in that space on July 14th, Bastille Day, the last day of that workshop, they hired me to run the Chopra Center. And that was like, I never went back home. I never flew. Well, 6 months later, I flew back to get all my stuff. But I just said, like, I'm here. I'm showing up. This is it. This is what I've been waiting for all this time. This is why I've been doing nothing for 2 years. I'm just like allowing this, to settle in. And that began a magnificent journey where I got to apprentice under the two of them for a decade, ultimately becoming the lead educator and then becoming the dean of Chopra Center University, and where I got to certify thousands of people in yoga, Ayurveda, meditation. I got to teach meditation every single day. I got to launch those sunrise meditations with Wendy, and I got to really just immerse and suddenly like listen to people after I would teach them, like, well, why aren't you doing it? And what are your experiences? And what are your challenges? And that allowed me to become a better teacher because at first I was just like telling everyone what to do. And then I realized, well, to be a great teacher, you actually need to listen. So that was one of the blowaway lessons in that process. And at about the 10-year mark, David Simon, it's the cosmic joke. He was my closest and dearest friend, neurologist, dedicated to healing, diagnosed with a terminal brain tumor. And when he passed away, I was sort of like, you know what? I think I've really given my all to this process. Let me, really challenging. Let me let this dream go because maybe I've done 85% of it, of what my vision was, what my dream was, and let me start a new dream. And so I left the nest with Deepak's blessing, and which was probably the most difficult, really difficult conversation to have, telling him. And of course, he was like, "You're always part of the family. Don't worry about that. You've done a great job, and how can I help you?" So he's so gracious, so ridiculously gracious. And then I began just doing my own thing, traveling to different countries, working in hospitals, working in South America, into the jungles, working with kids. I've worked in the prisons, I've worked in the corporate world. And so suddenly this thing really took on really a life of its own. And, there's a big difference between teaching people at Bank America and teaching the Dutch Special Forces. So I really got to explore all these other areas and really study the science, study the neurology, study the practical application in a secular way, in a Sanskrit cooked out woo woo way, in a spiritual way, in an emotional way, and I'm hooked. That's what I do now. I meditate probably for at least a few hours every single day, and I get to share these things. And people say, like, "What do you do for a living?" And probably my most common answer is I help people connect to the stillness and silence that rests within, so they can make a better decision. And that's it. And I think that when we can really reconnect to that yoga sta kuru karmani, connect to that stillness first, and then perform action, we're probably going to show up with a little higher vibration, just a little higher energy to make a better choice. Not always, but there's a higher likelihood. So that brings us to now, I guess.
Beautiful. Thank you. Davidji, one thing that's interesting to me, because I knew a little bit of your story and kind of where you were before you got to the Chopra Center. You mentioned your wife, and it's interesting that you clearly have. Well, there's two things that hit me. Number one, that once David passed, your time with the Chopra Center was done. And it's interesting that you said you guys were like a triangle relationship, you, he, and Deepak. You were this formation. And so I'm always interested in that, how people and our relationships and our soul contracts with others kind of keep us in a place. And then if that dynamic changes, so too often does the form around it. But I'm curious with your wife, who was, you said earlier your relationships weren't great when you were on Wall Street for those years where you felt kind of dead. But it sounds like she's been this champion companion, and also that you two had a certain level of autonomy in your relationship and freedom to be able to explore what you needed. Did she go with you to India, or was that a period where you two were apart?
No, and it's a really common question that I get because, here I was lost and needing something. Clarity, reconnection to purpose, meaning in life. And she was totally selfless in that. She's like, don't worry, I'm committed to you. You just work out your stuff and I'll be here. which is like ridiculously rare, I think, in any context. I've been fortunate to whether it's Deepak or David Simon, and there's been a whole bunch of other people in that Wayne Dyer was another one, Louise Hay. There's been a whole bunch of people who have seen more in me than I was ever seeing at that time, and thank God for them for just like trusting that whatever I was going to do next would be an evolution, really take me to a better level because, I came back so clear. I came back so happy. I came back, so peaceful in my heart, which had been turbulent for many, many years. And, also, I don't want to gloss over it. When for me 9/11 was a game changer. Like I said, I was at this other company at the time, and I was running that company. I was the COO of that company, and we were on the roof 20 blocks north of the Twin Towers. And I'd worked on and off in that building for a decade, and there were people with me whose loved ones were in that building as well, and we were like standing there as they're watching the buildings burn. And when Tower 2 collapsed, and I know that everyone on the floor that I was working on, if you were there, you died in that. Watching Tower 2 collapse is like watching something vanish that's impossible to vanish. I had grown up looking at the World Trade Center. I had driven by that, a trillion times. So that really hit me so deeply, and made me question everything in life. It was probably the deepest trauma that I had ever experienced. And I believe, obviously that we can rise from the ashes. But I believe that some traumas, they're so deep, they hit you so hard, that I wasn't really, I wouldn't consider myself functional even right after that, because I was still trying to figure out how'd that happen? How could that happen? And I believe that that's what resilience is, and I believe resilience is not being bulletproof, because I was knocked down, I was depressed, I was at times suicidal, um, but I believe that when we can find some kind of purpose, some type of reason, no matter what our loss is, that and it takes everybody at a different time, and everybody needs to grieve at different periods of time. But I believe that we can actually come back and be stronger. And Nietzsche said it, and Kelly Clarkson said it. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger if you get back up. So
Sure.
so yeah, and I think pain for my life, and I've met so many people, their core relationship suddenly shattered, and they thought it would be that way forever. They work at the job, and they've given their heart in their life, and suddenly someone says, we don't really need you anymore. Someone so close to you suddenly dies. And I think that I've had a couple of these traumatic experiences in my life, and I believe that they've always made me stronger. My mother dying when I was relatively young, certainly 9/11. um, David Simon, my best friend, I had like given everything to that relationship. We were like inseparable. And we must have spent like 6 hours every day talking about the Yoga Vashishta and Sufism and the Bible and like all this cooked out stuff, really deep stuff. And so his dying also was sort of like, that was one of those moments that just rocked me to the core. And like in that moment, I had to, after that experience, I just had to say, like, what value can I bring to the world now? Okay. Nothing can ever get worse than everything that's happened so far. Where can I really, I really like looking up to the heavens and asking the universe, what will you have me do now? What shall I do? Um, and I wake up every day with that. I wake up every day like, how can I add value to this place? And there are times where I say, you know what? today I don't know that I can add value. I'm not creative enough to come up with something that is worthy. And other days I'm like, oh yeah, this is it. Let's do it. Let's bring it. And so I have deeper conversations with myself about my place in the world rather than just sleepwalking through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I so relate to the piece around knowing the days where you don't have it, and knowing on those days, then go within and deepen with yourself. Whereas for many years I used to fight that both spiritually and creatively. I used to have a belief about holding myself in a certain place, and once I let that go, everything got a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because, if you're a high achiever, and pretty much, or a pitta in Ayurveda, we call those fire people. Um, you're going to be pretty harsh to yourself when you're not bringing it.
Mhm.
And who can bring it every day? No one can. Think of your greatest archetypes and heroes. We're often only seeing them when they're in thrive mode. We're not
Totally.
seeing them when they're just trying to tread water and just breathe, and maybe they're in pain emotionally or physically. So that taught me a lot too. It taught me a lot about empathy and compassion, as well, because I think uh, those are also, there's no end point for that. You have to keep evolving your
Mhm.
emotional intelligence, and because we can't even guess other people's pain.
Mhm.
We can witness it, and it can hurt us a lot. But when someone's in a unique situation that you could never be in, it's agonizing,
Mhm.
and you can only guess the depth of that. So I'm on a journey to, I want to feel it. I want to feel, the excruciating pain that someone else is feeling, not to take it on,
Mhm.
not to take that energy on, and not to steal their moment. But I want to feel it because I believe my heart can love more if I can get to certain places that I'm otherwise protecting myself from.
Mm. Mm. It's interesting when you talk about 9/11 and the impact that had on you, and I feel like, especially for people in the younger generation right now who were either too young when 9/11 happened or who weren't affected by it, in a way, what we're experiencing in this past 5, 6 months with coronavirus, stay-at-home orders, everything that's been going on around it and through it too, I feel like this is one of those transformational times for everybody right now in the world. I'm curious how, because clearly, your work is more needed than ever at a time like this, helping people center, helping people work with stress. How has it personally affected you to not be out there with people, working with people? What would you say perhaps the gift and the challenge for you have been through this last 4 or 5 months of social distancing?
Yeah, well, thank you for phrasing it like that, the gift and the challenge, because I believe, I have a gratitude practice, I'm sure you do, and it's part of my meditation practice every single morning. Simply just asking, what am I grateful for? And just like going there for 5 or 15 minutes. And, the obvious things are all the things that we see, people, circumstances, situations that are nourishing and loving to us. And but what about all the stuff that pushes us in directions and makes us feel that's not on the surface nourishing to us? Yeah, 9/11 was core to me. uh, I don't know that you need a 9/11 to even have that. You could just have someone that you loved so deeply, get sick or die or leave you. Everyone's got that, you know that or those moments, and I think that yeah, in 5 years no one will even know what I'm talking about when I say 9/11. They're gonna be like, you mean dial 911? So I get it. That was, for me, that was a defining touch point, and I think everyone has those. And I think, if you're like five or more in 2020, guess what? This was a defining weird, year for you. You didn't go to school if you were a kid, or you stopped going to school. You couldn't really connect as a teenager, and that's like those are the years when you need desperately to connect. If you were a parent, you had to suddenly homeschool, and and simultaneously do a job if, by the grace of God, you kept your job. I call this period of time low tide. I go to the beach. I live pretty close to the beach, and I go to the beach with my dog a lot. And we like to go at low tide because at low tide, beach is really, really wide, and we'll go at like crack of dawn, 6 o'clock in the morning, and there's no one there. And at low tide, it's a very, very different experience. And now I've been to the beach at low tide. It happens you know, realistically, it's going on. It happens twice a day, every 6 hours, low tide. But at especially closer to the new moon, it's really, really, really low. And so we all know high tide. We've been living in high tide for the last decade or so, or maybe longer than that. High tide, you're bouncing on the waves, you see the clouds, you see the trees, you see the other boats on the water. You can look down, you can't even see the bottom. Everything's beautiful. High tide is amazing. Low tide's the opposite. Low tide, suddenly all is revealed. Low tide, suddenly all the sharp edges come out. So for us who are beings of connection and energy, to be suddenly compressed into this space where we are told, you can't go out, you can't do this, you can't do that. And then simultaneously for us to suddenly see the rapid fire symptoms of systemic racism in our world, which, and the message there is, get out. Get out. The streets are talking. Get out there and join the streets. And so one part of the world is squeezing you in and another part is telling you to squeeze out. I believe that this is such a critical time where, regardless of where you're intellectually or philosophically or politically or socially, this is a critical time for self-care.
Yeah.
And so when, our governor closed down our state, and like gun ranges were open, gun stores were open, that was an essential business, but not meditation teachers. And I was like, hey, what? Someone's got their priorities reversed on this one. Definitely, you want to keep your gun stores open. Well, at least allow the meditation teachers also to be doing stuff. And so that really, it was that moment where suddenly, we started to feel the walls coming in at the same time that something inside of us was telling to go out. And, the level of depression that people have experienced. And, just look at the dogs. I'm big on, I'm not big on dogma, but I'm really big on dogs. So, the dogs who suddenly have had their routine turned on its head, and the kids whose routines have been turned on their head, and even our circadian rhythms, we're supposed to like do this, or at least we've trained ourselves to do that. And the funny thing is, we've been praying for this probably for 25 years. We've been begging for this. We all have said, oh my God, if I could just have 2 weeks with nothing happening, I would feel so much better right now. I would feel so clear-headed. And then it arrives, not in the form we requested, and not going away so quickly either. And, suddenly 2 weeks later, everyone's like, can we just get back to what we were doing? And it's like, no, you begged for this thing. So I think we're confused. I think we're overwhelmed. I think we're probably all not eating as good as we could. I know that alcoholism has been on the rise. I know depression's on the rise. I know there's a lot of dysfunctionality in relationships that thrived because there was always space being put between them, and now no space, or certainly less space. And so I believe that now more than ever, people who can offer some peace of mind, peace of heart to others, and teach them how to do it. That's always been like a thing. I don't want to like have like an amazing session with a person and they go, wow, that blew my mind. I was so chill. You totally connected me to my stillness. Because then it's just like going to a movie. It's like, all right, well, that was interesting. How do I then get you hooked on showing up the next day and the next day and the next day, and really weaving this timeless practice into your life so that everything has a little bit of elevation from that. And so this has been like one of the hardest periods of my life because, we have events where people are like, hugging, or where they're gazing into each other's eyes, or where they're, doing stuff that's, even if it's like, sound healing and things along those lines. And now it's all via Zoom. Now it's all via this thing. I'm also doing a lot of training that I would otherwise do in person, and it's harder to get feedback from me. Yesterday, I was working with the executives of the San Francisco Police Department. That was like a really, really intense. It was all an all day thing. It was like 8 hours of me staring into the green dot. You know, for that whole period of time, and I think that's and I get it's good because just like we're gazing into each other's eyes right now, but when there's 30 people on the screen and you don't really know if someone's like checking emails while they're doing that, or watching YouTube videos, it's hard, and there's no room for that spontaneous aha moment from someone who's just sitting there. So I was supposed to take a group in September to India. I do that every year. Take a group of people, and it just didn't feel right to do that. India's not even allowing flights from the United States right now, so it's really hard for me to say, yeah, sure, everything will be fine. So I pushed that off till next year. So I'm sure it'll be in big demand, but that was sort of like a bit of a heartbreak for me, that these people wouldn't get to experience that, because this would be the time, when you could really connect to some of that timeless wisdom. And I've got a whole bunch of in-person events set up for October, November. See what happens there. All of our events sort of, got canceled when the governor's order came down in May. So I've just, I've pivoted, and I'm just like, I don't want to stop teaching. I'm still teaching every day, still connecting to hundreds of people every day. But if this is it, then let me become a Zoom expert. If this is the way to do it, let me just let me step up. Let me step up my game and see if I can create the greatest, as you do. You've created this magnificent platform for people to heal and thrive. So that's, I can only aspire to follow your lead, Lee.
Thank you. And the one thing that we said is, the one thing that you just said, which I'm very aware of, especially in our Zoom culture. Like you, I'm grateful we have Zoom. I'm grateful that we have this, what to me seems like a slightly psychic, telepathic communication portal that we can use, but I'm really aware that our bodies get left behind. Our physical senses get left behind. That part of us that when we're in a room with each other is reading and communicating energy completely unconsciously, subconsciously. So I think it's a tricky thing. Like for me personally, nothing really slowed down. If anything, I felt like I felt the need go up in the world for the kind of stuff we do. So I kind of, for the first few weeks, really, and also we, like you, we had to cancel some things and change some things. But what I also recognized for myself was, because so many people were new to Zoom, or it was like a novelty for them, there were all these people going, hey, shall we Zoom at like 5? And I was like, no, because I'm like, I do my 4 hours a day on Zoom, sometimes more, and that's enough. And then I need to back away. Otherwise I start to lose balance, because it's a slightly confusing way of communicating if you do it too much and you don't have the physical mirroring and the physical response that I think we're all craving and missing, and trying to find our new balance point with, because this is a time like no other when it comes to that.
Yeah, and in person, and all of my workshops, they're small workshops. I always cap whatever I do. I cap it at 30 people, because for me, I want to, by the end of the day, I want to know everyone's name. I want to know everyone's voice after 2 days, or something along those lines. There's something about, it's not just my connection to that person, but if there's 30 of us, that creates this unbelievable, amplified, energetic connection, which that's the thing I find most missing. People can, and I've done 2 teacher trainings now, virtual on Zoom, where I've certified meditation teachers, and gone through another, done a few events. There's some So I'm really, really familiar with like what was missing on that one. How can I engage this one at a higher level? And so there are some things that I've done, sort of like a speed dating kind of thing. If we've got 30 people, I break them up into Zoom rooms, and suddenly it's 4 people, and it's like, okay, for 10 minutes, talk to each other. And then, that happens, and then it's like, do it again, do it again. So there's sort of like speed dating and and workshop simultaneously, but still like I'm missing that. Like I'm offering that to them, and then they all come back to the main room. So there are I'm always trying to raise the bar. I'm always trying to figure out what's a newest technique that someone's doing that's adding value. But there's nothing like um, listening with your eyes closed to the room breathing. You know, there's nothing more powerful than that, where you suddenly, I'm big on entrainment, and we know that if there's 5 people in a room, or 8 people, or 30 people in a room, ultimately, if we spend enough time together, you know, our energy will entrain. Our heartbeats will all start beating at the same highest. I always say the highest vibration always wins. So whoever's got the slowest heartbeat, everyone's going to get pulled down to that. Whoever's, the most loving person, everyone's going to get elevated to that. And I think that's missing when we're looking at 30 boxes on a screen, like Hollywood Squares or Brady Bunch. It doesn't have that same energetic feel. So you're right. We leave our bodies behind. We go from being these, 3, 4, 5 dimensional beings into just these 2 dimensional little boxes on a screen. Don't worry. I'm sure we're just a couple of years away from suddenly everyone going like, oh, you don't have the 3D app, or the 4D app. So that'll be the next wave of this, I think.
The sensory replication app. You just put your hand in it, and So yeah, I don't know if I want to think about that, but you're probably
it's a little horrifying.
There are so many things that I could talk to you about, and I'm aware that partly because of the time that we booked with you, and partly because I think most people an hour-long conversation tends to be enough. I was trying to think today, okay, well, what is most relevant, because you have such an enormous body of work, and the one thing that really stuck out to me, and you just mentioned it, especially with our recent climate around police brutality, was your Blue Courage awareness training.
Yeah.
Perhaps you could just tell us, what is that? What does that look like? And how did you get started with that?
Yeah, I guess it was about 10 years ago. I stumbled in, I got invited. It was a trick. It was a prank on me to go to Camp Pendleton, which is the largest Marine, reserve in the United States. And these guys had just come back from too many tours of Iraq and Afghanistan. And I just come off the beach. I was wearing a giant Om t-shirt. My hair was like scraggly and really long. And it was a prank. Somebody thought it would be really funny to suddenly put me in front of these guys. And it was in that moment that I suddenly realized I'm not going to mention the word meditation. I have taught people who have been to Iraq and Afghanistan. I have worked with soldiers before. I have several of my students have died in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so I figured let me just share what I do know, and then let me call everything tactical breathing. Let me just talk about this. We're going to do some
language. That's
we're going to do like tactical breathing here.
Yeah, very good.
And it was basically something that I evolved into. I call it 16 seconds to clarity. And so everybody could like breathe in and watch their breath to the count of 4. Let's just do it here, just to create this. So think about something that's been bothering you or disturbing you. Don't go too deep. This isn't therapy, but something that's irritating. Something was supposed to happen over the last couple of days, and it didn't turn out that way. And now get clear on that. And now close your eyes, and through your nose, take a long, slow, deep breath in, and watch that breath. And when it gets down to your belly, hold it there and keep holding it and keep watching it and keep witnessing it and keep observing it. And then very, very slowly release that breath and keep watching it as it moves up your chest. Watch it as it moves through your throat, out through your nostrils. Keep witnessing, keep exhaling. All right, now breathe normally and open your eyes. So that was 16 seconds.
Mm.
Classic pattern interrupt. In
Good.
those 16 seconds, if you were playing along, and you did, Lee, thank you.
Of
You were not
course.
think you were not thinking about that thing that I asked you to think about.
I'm not going to miss out on a free Davidji session in the middle. Are you kidding me? That was fantastic. I might be calling you every day at this time from now on.
I would love that. I would love that. I'll put that on my calendar. So if you were playing along, you weren't thinking about that irritation, and I didn't say stop thinking about that irritation, and that's the key. You just closed your eyes and really found yourself another object of your attention. And I believe that, so that's what I taught these Marines. And it worked. And they said, would you please come back tomorrow? And I said, it took me a half hour just to get through security here. And and they're like, no, we'll leave your name the next time. And they did. They just kept wanting to prank me. So I came back the next day and led another 16-second meditation. They said, keep coming. And I kept coming. And then after a week, they were doing that. And then they said, would you come back next week? I said, well, if I come back next week, we're adding a minute. So we did a minute and 16 every single day, and then 2 minutes and 16. And we did that every single day for 26 weeks. I was gone for like week 17 to 22 because I had to travel. But these guys now, a decade later, are all meditating for 26 minutes and 16 seconds every single day. But it was that experience that really, clicked it for me. And then the Department of Justice found out about that and reached out to me and said, there's a group that works with cops and they need this too if you're open to it. And I was like, of course I'm open to it. Whatever your opinion may be on defunding the police, on hating the cops, on doing whatever, they're here. Just like we had 1 million soldiers come home from Iraq and Afghanistan. They're here. So we can either say death to them, and then they're here, or we can say, oh my God, they're so wounded emotionally, physically, psychologically. How can I support? How can I help? How can I make a difference in helping these people de-escalate? How can I make a difference in helping these people breathe as they pull up on a crime scene? How can I make a difference in how they talk to others? And so I've worked with Blue Courage, teaching them, Don Miguel Ruiz's 4 Agreements and the teachings of the Buddha. I took 10 of them to India last year, and we were like meditating in the Beatles ashram and like going deep and swimming in the Ganges and going up into the Himalayas. I want them to connect to the softest, most tenderest parts of who they are. I want them to move beyond their stoicism, because I know that who signs up to protect and serve and risk their lives for people they don't know? Not me.
Yeah.
Not me. I'm not taking that job.
Yeah.
They, between soldiers and cops, they're doing that for people they might not even like. And I'm not doing that. So there's a certain nobility to the original why someone would become a cop. And I'm thinking most people do that for a good intention. They want to serve. They want to protect. Are there a-holes out there? Yeah, sure. And guess what? Pick the profession. Unfortunately, these people are have a lot more power than someone who's running the marketing department, at eBay. So, there could, and I'm not saying that person's an a-hole. I just took that out of nowhere. But so my feeling is, that's how I work with people in the corporate world. I work with people, in, like I said, Dutch special forces. I've worked with the Ecuadorian police. I've worked with the Dublin street gang Guardia. I want to work with people who we've given up on, and I'm not giving up on them. I'm gonna make that difference. And I can't force anyone, but these 30 people who I worked with yesterday, and I've worked with SFPD and I've worked with NYPD, a whole bunch of different police departments. These guys had to apply and be accepted by the Blue Courage Leadership Division. So, these weren't like showing up in a room and everyone's like sitting there like this going, oh, what do you have to teach me? These are people who said, I want to learn to connect to stillness and silence. I want to be more reflective. I want to be more patient. I want to be more purposeful with my policing. I want to restore the nobility of my profession. And I was like I love hanging out with them. It was great, really, really powerful. So, I get a lot of haters all the time. Wherever I go, there's people like, why do you do that? Or why, whatever. And I'm like, I'm just trying to follow my heart. If I can spread more love and if I can allow people to be better listeners, and maybe raise their vibration, that's my intention. Do I make mistakes? Tons of them. Do I stumble and bumble and get defensive about stuff like that? Sometimes. But, my feeling is, we've got to love each other. There's more things that connect us than separate us. We've got to love each other. And if we're not treating each other with respect, I don't care what side of anything you're on, if you're not treating people with respect, you're never going to convince them. So then what? We suppress the voice and then it comes back with violence.
Yeah.
That's what's been going on for the last 400 years in the United States. Suppress the voice. How long can you hold a balloon underwater? What happens to a dream deferred? So I mean, this is happening in all the quarters of the planet, I think. And every time we suppress a voice, I also go to Israel and hang out with groups of Palestinians and Israelis who have children who have been killed by suicide bombs and by Israeli bullets, who work together to create peace. And people say to me, "Oh my God, you can't go to Israel. It's apartheid. They're these horrible people." I'm like, "What are you doing? Sitting on the couch pointing at me?" I'm trying to bridge that piece, and I'm trying to raise them. And I bring groups of people to experience that so they can come back here and understand that we have a deeper obligation to love each other, which is no one is taught that in school, whatever school you go to.
It's true.
So sort of like my side mission of and so it's rough sometimes, and these are rough times, and they should be rough times.
Yeah.
So rather than going like, oh my God, it's so hard, it's like, isn't everything worth having hard? There's no shortcuts here.
Earlier when you said that you got incredible support from Louise Hay, Wayne Dyer, Deepak, all those people who you seemed genuinely surprised by. When you said that, I was sitting here, and my intuitive mind is a big part of my identity. And I just heard, yeah, he's an engine. They saw he's an engine. And they knew that he's an engine that's going to keep driving his energy around the world. And so they supported him because your design is a little different to theirs, perhaps, but that they could see that your design was going to do exactly what you just said you're doing. It's like you're the engine that will. You're the engine that will drive, that will go over there and sort this out. And so that just came to me again when you were speaking about the bridging work that you do, that you're this energy engine. And that's its own kind of superpower, and that's a really important role in our world.
And I love that you talk about superpowers, because I believe that we are mutants, and everyone should watch X-Men over and over and over, and just allow yourselves to realize, oh my God, that's really why I wrote Sacred Powers, because they're resting within. And of course, every mutant is not necessarily appreciated for their superpowers. Lots of, look at any mutant out there and they're like, now they're trying to shut me down. So that's why we have to really go deeper with our superpowers. When I was watching a video where you were talking about superpowers, and I was just like in glee. I was just like so giddy watching it. So.
Well, it's funny you bring up Sacred Powers, because I probably have room for 2 more questions with you. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, so you have 3 books, and in Sacred Powers, you have a chapter called Divine Formula. And you touch on looking at what's your winning formula. So explain what a winning formula is to the listeners, and what would you say yours is?
Well, so a winning formula, at a certain age, we realized, here are the blockages. Maybe I'm not as attractive as that other person who's always getting called on. I'm getting picked on. They're getting called on. Maybe I'm not as smart as that person who's suddenly, going to have this path to success in their life. And we all do this. we at some point someone said no, or like, come on, you're not that, and so we adapted, and we said, okay, what's my template? What's the paradigm that I'm going to use? What's the persona that I'm going to sort of create to walk through the world? And it helps us get to that point. But I believe that at a certain point, because so many different stages and phases of life,
Mm.
that at a certain point, what was critical in getting us through high school, or critical for us getting our first job, or maybe meeting someone, to partner with, um, or establish ourselves in the world, that's not necessarily the same paradigm that we need now. And so my winning formula for a solid 30 years was class clown. It was, I was like, in my home, I grew up in a fairly, violent and loud household, where the only person who got heard was the person who yelled the loudest. And I did not have the loudest yell, so I never got heard. I was invisible. But when I could trot out a joke and make someone laugh, suddenly I would get that attention. I
Uh-huh.
realized it at home. I realized it at school. I wasn't necessarily the best studier, but I definitely could say the funny or sarcastic or whatever thing. And so I was always getting the attention that I felt I wasn't getting in other critical core areas. I did it when I got my first job, and people were always like, "Oh, that guy, he's so fun to hang out with." But as I got deeper involved in the corporate world, and as I got deeper involved in my education and advanced my education, I realized I'm not really being appreciated for what I want to be appreciated for. I want people to say, "Wow, you studied that? You've been doing that for like all this time? That was so brilliant what you said." And instead they were saying, "That was so funny." And it clicked on me when I was introduced, like, to speak at some place. I was speaking to, like, I was teaching law school, um, teaching lawyers about finance at Cornell Law, and they introduced me as, like, he's one of the funniest people I know, and I'm like, really? Here I am. I'm teaching at Cornell Law, and that's my intro. And, it was just like, ugh, kill me now. The knife was just like twisting inside of me. And I realized, you know what? It's time to take out my contact lenses that I've been living my life through, shake them out, wipe them out, and come up with a new winning formula, because I realized that I was defaulting to conditioned behaviors, because that had been my winning formula on a path I was no longer on.
Yeah.
And so I dove deeper into going deeper into education, and going deeper into school and studying, and going deep into the ancient teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, and the Yoga Sutras, and the Dhammapada, and the Rig Veda, and the Upanishads, and suddenly, like, all this stuff that was like so new to me. And I said, let me own every single word. Let me memorize it and etch it into my heart. Let me make that, my new formula. So now I'd rather, you know, come up with a one-liner that's something that I read, like Yoga Sta Kuru Karmani, or some kind of profundity that has been timeless wisdom, and I get to translate it in modern times, than the joke.
Mm.
And, and I use humor to teach, because I think it's very disarming. And I think, people can sit there and have a great time and take on all this information. And once in a while, someone says, you should do like stand-up comedy. And I'm like, thanks. It's my old winning formula. My new winning formula. So I would say that, I leveraged my humor um, as my first winning formula. It was the end. Now it's the means.
Yeah.
And that shift for me, realizing that, the goal isn't to get a laugh. The goal is to see the aha moment in the student in front of me, and they didn't even know that they got it in that moment. A week later, they'll be walking across the street and they'll be like, wow, that was really cool. Where did I hear that? I don't need to get credit for it. I see it at the moment it happens. So really shifting humor from the end to the means changed my entire life. And that's my winning formula now. I
Beautiful.
want to sit in a casual way, talk about something so deep that no one would ever want to talk to or listen to, and have it be so light that they get it.
But here's what I love about that. So you were talking about tactical breathing was how you reframed meditation and breath training. And I think that's the irony to me. Like one of the things, because I did not, I never envisaged that I would go by the names of variously channeler, intuitive guide, spiritual teacher. I didn't think I would add those to flawed human and somebody trying to figure it out. You know, all the other names that we have in any other capacity, because I think there was so much separation for me in those terms, and more importantly, in the way that people see those terms. You know, there was still this guru idealization. So I think a lot of the time, the separation that we have around spirituality is because we forget it's in us and it's close to us. So tactical breathing, oh yeah, I totally, the way I think and the way I have been entrained and programmed to think, tactical breathing sounds like a benefit. But meditation sounds like this weird woo-woo, oh, hang on a second, there is this barrier. And so I love that what you're talking about is finding ways to constantly connect people to that which is already in us, and to, in a way, normalize or ground some of this stuff, because I use humor in the same way, and especially when I'm live in the room, because it moves energy, and it's a way of moving energy which can otherwise be too heavy. Because the other side of what you're saying, which I find really powerful, as a student of self-growth and healing, because I needed it desperately in order to survive in my late teens and early 20s, what I then found as I went into being a facilitator for other people's healing and self-growth, as well as being a student of it, was that it's very common that we will start to focus. People are more comfortable focusing on what they need to let go of, what they need to heal, than remembering that the gift of self-actualization, spirituality, healing is, it brings back your creator. So you can create a new story. You can create a new winning formula. That's the beauty of life. We aren't the programs that we have become or been entrained to think we have to stay as. The beauty of life is the physical body is going to change you. This world around is going to change us. Those two things are going to change our perspective and our relationship all of the time. But I find it really exciting that, you know, this chapter that you have and this method that you have is, I think that's one of the things that I think would set the world on fire very fast, is if we remember our ability to create and our ability to recreate, because I think that's one of the things that we are very asleep at the wheel at as a society. And it's one of the things I've seen now working in healing for 16 years. That's the hardest thing for a lot of people to get. It's very easy for people to think, oh yeah, I need to heal what happened with my mother. Yeah, maybe. And if you invent something on the right at the same time, you know, heal on a Tuesday, and then on a Wednesday, go and learn something new, that healing is going to be so much easier than if we just look down and behind. And I say that as someone who, hey, I've played the victim. I've had all the dark night of the soul. I don't want to be here moments too. I get it. But I think that creator power is so what we need right now. And I think that's the gift of self-actualization.
It's so brilliantly.
Really? I'm just bouncing off you, Davidji, because I loved, you know, everything. But it was kind of a, you know, that was a clarifying moment for me hearing you say that. That's always been one of the things that I've noticed in the healing and the spiritual worlds, that I sometimes say that I'm New Age recovery. So people go, oh yeah, Lee does that New Age work. But if you really know what I do, no, I'm kind of like New Age recovery. I'm all about intuition, and I love a lot of stuff around the New Age, but I'm not, you can just love and light your way through everything. I don't think that's who we're here to be. I think we're here to really become. So no, I love that part of your work, and I think it's very important. So Davidji, we're at the end, sadly. I could.
Oh my God, I'm having such a great time hanging out with you. Too. Oh my God.
Me too. But we had a meeting about a week ago, and it was suggested that we need to be careful about how long the kind of interviews and conversations go. And I get it, because, you know, people told me, they said, oh, people don't like seeing that something's over an hour. And I'm like, okay. Anyway.
This could be the bonus track. You know?
It could be.
One ends at 59 minutes, and the other one is like, and a 15-minute bonus track.
For those of you who have all the time in the world, we're now going on to the 6-hour debrief about that one aspect. You know, Impact the World is the reason this show is called Impact the World is because I paid attention to what my community was saying before I started training groups around the work they wanted to do in the world, because I was doing it a lot one-on-one. I kept hearing people going, I feel like I'm here to impact the world, but I don't know what. So that's why this show is called Impact the World. You have impacted the world externally. You have impacted your own journey internally, because you've had this rich and varied journey so far, and it ain't over yet. What's next for you? Like, if you have an idea about your next decade, or just in this moment, what feels important to you perhaps in your next decade?
Yeah, well, great question. And my tagline, which I've had for 20 years, is we transform the world by transforming ourselves. So it's so I believe that, and I'm not all about love and light. I think, you and I really see eye to eye on this. Yeah, I want to show it with my best version. But boundaries are like so critical to everything.
Oh yeah.
Boundaries are so critical to, because if I really understand boundaries, then I can really be fully vulnerable. And if I'm fully vulnerable, then I can get so strong and be so courageous. But if I have boundaries, if I don't have boundaries, then, or if I have porous boundaries, then I'm not going to be in my best place, because I'm going to be putting my attention on trying to stop something or defend something. And, I think that's, really such an important part of what we do. Because I believe everybody who's on this journey um, is on a journey back to their wholeness, back to the memory of their wholeness, at least. And and that's not always love and light. That's sometimes tears and crawling through glass.
Yeah.
And if you think, oh no, it's all good, it's all good, it's all good. Yes, yes, yes. At the highest level, the ancient teachings say, yes, it's all Brahman. It's all Godhead. But here we are with bills to pay and relationships to heal and, to actualize ourselves. Yes, it is all Godhead, but what about all that other real world stuff?
Totally.
And we could say, oh, it's all an illusion. Okay, stop paying your bills for a couple of months, and then you'll see how much of an illusion it is. So, I guess I guess there's another book that's in the works, but I never like wrote my I never like wrote a book on demand. Hay House has said it tons of times to me. Okay, we're ready for your next one, and I'm like, but I really want to live this one a little bit. And they're like, everyone else is not. They're coming out with a new book every 3 months, and I'm like, that's not me. I want to be so deep talking about the same thing that I wrote about. I don't just want to here's the next one and the next one. So so I like to really relish. It's a great album by Joan Osborne, but I love to relish the stuff when it's feeling good. And so I've been I've been a student of a lot of these ancient texts for a long time, and over the last several months, I've been doing these 5-week online sessions. And the funny thing is, Lee, they're all supposed to be an hour twice a week, Sunday and Wednesday. And as we hit the 2-hour mark, and there are people who are in the chat, and we could have 150 people on there, and the people in the chat are saying, "Can we get to the meditation already?" And so I have been scolded so frequently. Other people are like, "Oh my God, I wasn't doing anything anyway. This is the most amazing thing." But since I said it was going to be 5 weeks, 1 hour each, and they've all gone 2 hours. So I have no temporal integrity. So I don't. And it's not because I don't care about anyone else's time, but it's suddenly oh, this thing is so amazing. You have to let me just take, but I do that suddenly 8 times in a session, and 1 hour turns to 2. So that's what's, so funny that you're saying that, because I was just scolded just yesterday, 2 days ago, for having no temporal integrity. So what's next for me? I don't have an end game, on this. July
Mhm.
14th is coming up. July 14th was the day that I started at the Chopra Center. That's Bastille Day. That's Liberation Day. That's Moksha Day. And it's actually the last day that I was there as well. July
Wow.
14th and July 14th. So I view, since that was like the last official day that I was there, I'm still in the glow. So what I do every July 14th, that's sort of like my celebration, that like where I say like, what's next? What can I do? I believe we're going to be in the age of COVID for a while. I
Mhm.
believe until there's either a drug or a vaccine, we're still going to be, not moving around as freely as we want, and that's going to put again that
Mm.
extreme constriction. Um, so I've been, studying more of the ancient texts because whatever we're going through, they went through similar things as well. And so, really what I've been really putting my time and attention on is finding the commonalities in so many different indigenous societies. I've been really spending a lot of time exploring African societies from like 75, um, I shouldn't say societies, cultures from 75,000 years ago, because they really were more tribal than societal at that time. And that seems to be the foundation of where everything has come from, starting in Africa 75,000 years ago. And so I've been really spending, probably for the last 3 years, I've been putting my time and attention on that, seeing where the various migrations occurred, what are some of the rituals and routines that those people elevated out, which things happen spontaneously and naturally. So I'm sure there's another book where I really go deep into the commonalities of virtually every
Tribe.
culture. Um, but that just fascinates me now. Simultaneously, I'm fascinated by our solar system. Do you know that the sun has this thing called the heliosphere, and it wraps our entire solar system and protects us as it showers us with gamma rays constantly? But it protects us from all the other radioactive stuff coming from every other part of the galaxy. So how come we're not getting like shredded by gamma waves? Because there's something also called the magnetosphere, which only Earth has, because we have this liquid weird center, and that protects us from the gamma rays of the heliosphere. So like talk about like divine whatever in terms of setting us up. So you know, I've been spending a lot of time exploring, our solar system and that kind of stuff, because I believe that, there's an expression in Sanskrit, yeah, yatapinde tat brahmandi, as is the cosmic mind, so is the personal mind, as is the cosmic body, so is the personal body. So I know that, so we have our own little heliosphere and magnetosphere inside of us as well as a people and as individuals. And so I see us as like these 7.6 billion people, and we're all wrapped in our own little heliosphere. And yet there's like, how do I really like elevate my individuality? It's because I've got my own little liquid center right in my heart, my own little magnetosphere that's allowing me to like move through the world. So I don't know. That's what I've been. That's what I've been studying. Going back as far as we can go back, and going out as far as I can go out, and trying to come up with some type of really, um, some translation of that divine convergence.
Mm. So I'm excited. I'm listening to you, and I'm like, if anyone at Hay House is watching this right now, you're probably going to get a call, and they're going to say, "Yeah, we would like those Tribe of the Universe volumes 1 to 10 books that you're working on," and it'll just be called the Davidji volumes, like decades from now. So no, that's awesome. That's awesome, and it's exciting, and yeah, it's beautiful. So, David G, I am going to have to, because apparently there are these rules around linear time that we're supposedly supposed to stick to, even though I too have trouble with all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it has been absolutely delightful to get to be with you, connect with you, talk to you, and I know for a fact that anybody listening or watching, they're going to have some little pings going off
I
from
hope so.
the beautiful engine that you are. So thank you for being you, and thank you for doing what you do in the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being so gracious, and such an amazing person to have a conversation with. So this time flew, and it's not enough. So like, how amazing,
Yeah.
is that? Thank you, and to all of your fans and followers and listeners and students. how fortunate they are to be on this journey with you as the guide, because you're guiding us all into magnificence, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And for anybody listening or watching, davidji.com is where you can find all of Davidji's work. And we will, as usual, put the links in the show notes and underneath the video. And Davidji, I feel there will be some other conversation, collaboration, something in the future. And I really look forward to it.
Thank you so much, Lee.
Yeah. Thank you. You have been listening to Impact the World. For more of my work, please visit leeharrisenergy.com. This August, I'm doing something a little bit different. From the 18th to the 26th, me and my team are bringing to you a virtual Soul Magic experience. We've run Soul Magic retreats for the last 4 years, and we would have been going to Costa Rica this October for our 5th one. But because we can't, and also because I've been feeling a calling to hand over the microphone to my guides, the Z's, a little more of late, we have created a brand new experience for you called Transmissions 2020. In it, there will be 5 live broadcasts which will be entirely channeled. These broadcasts will focus on you accessing more of your magnetic energy. I've chosen to broadcast all of these live because that way I know the material will be specially curated for those of you who show up to take this experience with us. Added to this, we have for you a special music album, and it's sound healing pieces from Devor Bozique with my spoken words weaved throughout. And when you do sign up, the first track from the Transmissions Sound Healing album will be available for you immediately. So to find out more about what Transmissions 2020 entails, you can visit transmissions2020.com, and if it resonates for you to take this special journey with us, we'll look forward to welcoming you there.